The study of urbanism is tightly associated with cities. The clue's in the name, and even Wikipedia thinks so. But urbanism is focused on the built environment, and that encompasses everything from the biggest cities down to the tiniest villages. And I believe there's plenty of lessons that villages and rural communities can teach our largest cities about good urbanism, particularly around human scale, character-focused development, celebration of heritage, placemaking, and access to green space. So, because it's the summer, I've decided to get out of London and explore some examples of good urbanism in the most unlikely of places. This is Tideswell in the Derbyshire Peak District. The area's national park status makes new development difficult here, so this place has effectively been frozen in time since 1951. As such, it provides a time capsule of a pre-war village. Almost all buildings here use the local stone, creating a harmonious streetscape which blends the village into the local nature and gives it a personality that is unique yet clearly unified with the surrounding Peak District area. It makes the village feel anchored into the surrounding countryside and actually enhances it, in my opinion. There's no huge towering apartment buildings, instead homes are small and tightly packed together, built on top of each other in a way. It's the sort of density you'd expect to see in a city, not in somewhere as remote as the Pennines. Yet it has a population density of 3,592 people per square kilometre, similar to Oxford and Cambridge, and a lot higher than the majority of towns and villages in the UK. If Tideswell was a country, it would be the 7th densest in the world, ahead of Malta and the Vatican City. But while it's ridiculous to compare villages with countries, Tideswell has a walkable density you don't often find in rural areas. There's a variety of different house types all clustered together: cottages, terraces, maisonettes and flats. This creates a unified variety to the streetscape and helps to attract a diverse community. This is a good example of gentle density. Its aim is to deliver the maximum number of homes in a way which retains a human scale and doesn't result in abruptly changing a place. The concept of gentle density brings many benefits, so many that I'd love to do a whole video on it. But I doubt that the people who built Tideswell knew that they were achieving peak gentle density. This is simply a rebrand for what was the dominant method used for building places before World War II. In Tideswell, gentle density brings residents geographically and figuratively closer together, while placing more people within walking distance of local businesses, which brings more customers and commercial resilience. There's a co-op, greengrocer, pharmacy, bakery, butchers, a school, several pubs, a sports centre and a few churches. One of these is St John the Baptist, widely known as the Cathedral of the Peak. Despite not being a cathedral, it marks the heart of the village. It was built during the 1300s and its bells can be heard across the village, which audibly binds the community. A tight web of narrow streets and alleyways also bind the village together and create a sense of enclosure. Their narrowness discourages motorists from driving through here, incidentally creating quiet streets which are welcoming for those on foot and encourage exploration. The village is built either side of a valley and uses this to its advantage. The slopes create layers of architecture when viewed from below, and a varied roofscape when viewed from above. There's a diverse set of different places dotted all over the village which make wandering around feel like an adventure. There's also lots of greenery. You catch glimpses of the surrounding countryside while wandering the streets. There are trees almost everywhere, old walls are adorned with moss and ivy, and house fronts are decorated with hanging baskets and flower beds. Combined with the pleasant quietness created by not having a constant stream of cars and traffic, this feels like a place that welcomes nature and is closely associated with the surrounding countryside. So often when we think about urbanism or the built environment, we think of it as the antithesis of nature. I don't believe this needs to be the case, and we would all benefit from living in places that invite greenery and nature. For instance, Tideswell is a compact village. It doesn't sprawl outwards. Its location inside the Peak District National Park means it's been preserved in this state, where similar villages have expanded significantly, usually with low-density single-family homes. This is great for Tideswell. Instead of being surrounded by a moat of sprawl which increases barriers between the heart of the village and the open countryside, Tideswell's higher density means that everyone lives closer to the countryside. There are no huge main roads to cross, no motorways to walk over or under, and no major obstacles to overcome. Just quiet alleys and country lanes opening out into fields. It could be argued that people living in villages like this get the best of both worlds. A compact, walkable place with a strong community and plenty of doorstep amenities, with some of the most beautiful countryside the UK has to offer a short walk away. But that doesn't mean that Tideswell has been immune to the sorts of changes that have happened in communities across the UK. Until recently, family-run shops all around the village sold everything local residents needed, but according to an information board in the heart of the town, these declined with the advent of the car. Bigger supermarkets opened in neighbouring towns which were able to offer a wider selection of goods. Those with a car benefited, leaving those without a car at a disadvantage. And so more people bought cars. What followed is a spiral of decline that many communities will be familiar with. Fewer customers for family-run businesses in Tideswell forced them to close down, which meant that local residents had no choice but to get a car and drive elsewhere to get what they needed, further exacerbating the decline. That said, Tideswell still enjoys more amenities than similar-sized villages, and while you may still need a car to live here, you wouldn't need to use it all the time necessarily. In fact, 15% of Tideswell households don't own a car. That's about 3 times higher than the surrounding average. Tideswell might present another sometimes overlooked way to encourage people to drive less. Buses do serve the village, but it's a very limited service with only 4 per day in either direction. Cycling would be pleasant on some of the quiet rural lanes in the area, but sooner or later you'd hit a main road and they have very little to protect cyclists from 50-mile-per-hour speed limits. Just 1.2% of locals cycle regularly. So, with cycling and public transport excluded, how does Tideswell achieve a lower level of car ownership in a deeply remote part of the country? The gentle density of the village packs more people into its walkable streets, providing more customers for local shops and businesses. While many communities have lost their butchers, greengrocers, pubs and shops, in Tideswell they are still thriving. The 20 UK local authorities which lost the most retail businesses between 2015 and 2018 had a population density 1/3 lower than the national average. These places lost on average 13% of their retail businesses, while the 20 local authorities where retail is most thriving have a population density that is 52% above the national average. These are very broad statistics, but they illustrate a potential link between areas with a high population density and thriving local retail. Businesses flourish where there is a larger market of potential customers living in close proximity, which feels logical. It could be that Tideswell's relatively high population density has allowed it to retain the kinds of shops which used to be common in communities up and down the country. In turn, because the village is so compact, residents don't necessarily need to drive to the shops. This could explain why Tideswell is an island of relatively low car ownership in a sea of sparse rural area where you'd tend to expect most people would need a car. Though we should also consider that the village sits in a national park which attracts 13 million tourists a year, and undoubtedly this also has a positive impact on businesses here. Being in Tideswell made me think that our cities and suburban areas can learn a lot from rural villages. Our cities would be much healthier places to live if they embraced nature and greenery more, and had quieter streets that offer easy access to open green space. Additionally, Tideswell is a great reminder of how we used to effortlessly build attractive, characterful places at a density which supports a thriving local community and a lower level of car ownership, with a diverse set of house types which are all uniquely beautiful. Places where you fantasize about yourself living are special to us, and we should create more of them. And there you have it. Even when I'm on holiday outside a city, I still manage to find an excuse to think about urbanism. I didn't know anything about Tideswell before I arrived, but walking around I fell in love instantly. I honestly think if more places were like this, we'd all benefit and be happier. Many of the houses in Tideswell were adorned with flowers and trees outside, which I interpret as it being an outward community where everyone kind of does their bit to keep it looking beautiful. And I could be wrong, but I think most people would want to live in a place like this. Let me know in the comments, could you see yourself living here? I've had lots of feedback from my previous videos, and I hope you can see I'm continually making changes based on your suggestions. Thank you again so much for all the comments, tips and ideas. I really appreciate them. One big suggestion I've taken for this video is a new microphone, and I'm hoping you can all tell the difference and it's a bit better now. I'm really grateful for you all for sticking around despite the bad audio in my previous videos, as I know how annoying that can be, so yeah, thank you. Anyway, thanks for watching and see you in the next video.